Hello there. So by his own admission, Keir Starmer prefers the company of his masters in Davos rather than the British democratic system. That, ladies and gentlemen, is our next Prime Minister, and this is treachery. So you think the Tories and Labour are different? Like many of you, I was not surprised that the man who allegedly let Mr. Savile off the hook should fit so well into the WEF inner sanctum. And yes, I was shocked that Kemi Badenoch was so easily brought into the WEF fold with their whining and dining. But that says all you need to know about the Tory party. Yesterday I talked about Tory MP and Trade Secretary Kemi Badenoch calling the World Economic Forum conference in Davos with all its rich and powerful people amazing. And Badenoch has been touted as a possible future Tory leader and Prime Minister. And now, when asked by journalist Emily Maitlis to choose between Westminster and Davos, the probable next Prime Minister and Labour leader Keir Starmer chose Davos. He said he prefers the World Economic Forum Davos conference to Westminster democracy, while he gushed about his meetings with top bankers from around the world. So we have top players in the two main parties cozying up to the global elites with their minority interests and readying to help the rich and powerful further pad out their wallets and power base. Is criticism of the World Economic Forum going to be the next on the ever-growing social media cancel list? And why does Starmer prefer Davos? Because in his view, Westminster is a tribal shouting place, which is too closed, and when you get out of Westminster to anywhere else, he said, you can meet with people you can envisage working with in future. Of course it's a tribal shouting arena, Mr. Starmer. We've basically got a two-party state where you shout at each other to get power, where the point of the exercise is that the party in government tries to fulfil its manifesto and the party in opposition does all it can to prevent that happening, even if the outcome would be good for the country. Have you thought maybe that proportional representation might be part of the cure for this? And then there's the hidden opposition. As I've said many times before, the only thing a general election changes is 100 or so MP faces on the green benches in the House of Commons. And apart from a few appointments, nothing much changes in the House of Lords though, and just about zero changes are made within the ranks of the civil service mandarins. Yes, top civil servants might get moved sideways and upwards, but it's very rare for them to be shuffled out, and when that does happen, it's so rare that it makes the news. And they still meet and chat and plot anyway. And it's many of these top civil servants who appear to see it as their job to place obstacles for the government to clamber over and hoops for them to jump through. All with the aim of providing continuity and guidance while preventing ministers from making mistakes, no doubt. But it's all more common purpose than our common interest. So it looks like our democracy is hollowed out from within via the Westminster bubble and hollowed out from without by ministerial and future ministerial admiration for the ways of the World Economic Forum, amongst other supranational bodies. But getting back to Badenoch and Starmer, they do have their post-UK political careers to think about too, don't they? No wonder voting changes nothing. As some wag once said, if voting made any difference, they wouldn't let us do it. And elections do these days seem to be much ado about nothing. So Rishi Sunak becomes the first person in history to be given a fixed penalty notice, first as the Chancellor of the Exchequer and now as the Prime Minister. And why did he get this one? Because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt in the rear seat of a car when it was being driven along the road, and he was being filmed doing it. And then the film was released and published, and no one thought to even check.
Is entitlement that embedded in these people? Anyway, did you know that since 2019 that cars should be fitted with rear seat belt as sort of alerts or reminders, so that when people are in the rear seat, the driver can see whether they're wearing a seat belt or not. And if they unbuckle it during the journey, it should set off an alarm of some sort or an alert. Now, if these cars are fitted with this, why wasn't Rishi strapped securely into his seat? He is, after all, the most powerful person in the country, the most important person in the country, arguably. And he's the one with his finger on the nuclear trigger as well. And they've got him swanning around in the back of a car, rattling around, so that the first nudge and he's sent flying into the seat in front of him. Now, that can't possibly be right, can it? The most powerful person in the country doing that, with all his people around him, not advising him, not keeping him safe. Sounds like a right mess to me.
And then there's Nadim Sohawi, the Tory party chairman. I wish I was so wealthy that I could carelessly forget about millions in tax, and also not have to worry about reportedly having to pay many times the annual living wage in a penalty payment to HMRC as a result. No wonder there are calls for him to resign his position or be ejected from it. And the Mail reports that he recently missed out on a knighthood because of this. This is open goal stuff for the opposition. I wonder if he'll still be there in a week's time. And Boris Johnson is back in the frame. This one is over a massive 800,000 quid loan. According to the Sunday Times, Richard Sharp, a former banker and now the BBC chairman, helped to arrange a guarantee on a loan of up to £800,000 for Boris Johnson weeks before the then Prime Minister recommended him for his role as BBC chairman. And another open goal for Labour to exploit. Now, while Keir Starmer has been playing the capitalist at the Davos conference, the Tory Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has been telling us all that only an idiot would think we could lower taxes right now. He was speaking at a levelling up event in Morecambe and said that as a Tory he wants to cut taxes, but added that, "You're not idiots, you know what's happened." So he's doubling down on his tax plans. So I presume the over 10 pence a litre fuel tax hike will still take place in April. It's like the red and blues are just interchangeable these days and merely bend with whatever political winds are blowing from the wealthy elites and big corporates. The trouble is, it does not help the rest of us one iota. And now, just to reinforce how beneficial the green agenda is to us, the National Grid has put the coal plants on standby to keep the lights on. And solar and wind power is providing about 16% of our power requirements right now, but that could well drop tomorrow as the weather gets more grey and still. And we're due some fog, I gather. And all the Green Lobby has as an answer is to build more turbines and solar panels to not work when the weather is icy cold, there's no wind and no sun. But at least the green subsidies keep flowing into a few people's pockets.